the waiter's heart. In the glittering world of Manhattan's elite, where champagne flows and designer labels define worth, Emma Richardson thought she had her life perfectly planned. But sometimes, the heart has its own blueprint, one that doesn't care about social status, family expectations, or the difference between a trust fund and a tip jar. This is the story of forbidden love, family pride, and the courage it takes to choose your own happiness. The collision. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Richardson and Associates as Emma Richardson gathered her things. At 24, she was already making a name for herself in Manhattan's competitive art world. Though being the daughter of Victoria Richardson, the formidable CEO of one of New York's most prestigious investment firms, certainly didn't hurt. Emma, darling, don't forget dinner on Thursday. Her mother's voice cut through the office bustle. Victoria stood in her corner office doorway, immaculate in a Chanel suit, her ash blonde hair pulled back in a severe chignon. The Wentworth are bringing their son, Bradley. Harvard Law. Excellent pedigree. Emma suppressed a sigh. Mom, I told you I'm not interested in being set up. Nonsense. You're not getting any younger, and Bradley is perfect for our family. Victoria's tone left no room for argument, as usual. Perfect. The word tasted bitter in Emma's mouth. Her mother's definition of perfect had always been rigid. Ivy League education, old money, country club membership, and the right last name. Emma had spent her entire life trying to fit into that mold, attending Wellesley, working in the acceptable field of art curation, dating the right kind of men. And she was exhausted. The November wind whipped Emma's auburn hair as she stepped onto Fifth Avenue. She needed a break from her mother's expectations, from the suffocating world of fundraising galas and networking events, where everyone sized each other up based on net worth. Her best friend Madison had been begging her to try this new restaurant in Brooklyn, something about authentic Italian food and a vibe that was completely different from the stuffy Manhattan establishments Emma usually frequented. On impulse, Emma texted her, "Still want to hit that Brooklyn place tonight? I need an escape." The response was immediate. Yes. Bella, not at 8. You'll love it. So different from your usual scene. Bella Knott was tucked away on a quiet Brooklyn street, its warm light spilling onto the sidewalk like a promise of comfort. Emma felt herself relax the moment she stepped through the door. Exposed brick walls, mismatched vintage furniture, soft jazz playing in the background, and the intoxicating aroma of garlic, tomatoes, and fresh basil. This is amazing, Emma breathed, taking in the cozy atmosphere. Unlike the pretentious restaurants her mother favored, all minimalist decor and portions the size of a quarter, this place felt alive, real. Madison grinned. Told you. Now sit down and prepare to have your mind blown. They settled into a corner booth, and Emma was studying the handwritten menu when she felt it, that electric awareness that makes you look up. And there he was. He was tall, probably 6'2", with dark wavy hair that fell just above his eyes, and a smile that could melt ice. He wore the restaurant's simple uniform, black pants, white button-down, black apron, but somehow made it look effortless. When he approached their table, Emma found herself momentarily speechless. "Good evening, ladies. I'm Jake, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." His voice was warm, genuine, with just a hint of a Brooklyn accent. His eyes, deep brown and incredibly kind, met Emma's, and she swore she felt something shift in her chest. "Hi," she managed, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. What was wrong with her? She'd been around attractive men before, but there was something different about Jake. Something in the way he looked at her like she was a real person, not just a trust fund with legs. Madison, oblivious to Emma's sudden tongue-tied state, launched into questions about the menu. Jake answered each one with enthusiasm, clearly passionate about the food. He recommended the homemade ravioli and the ossobuco, his eyes lighting up as he described how the chef, his uncle, prepared each dish. "You really love this place," Emma found herself saying. Jake's smile widened, guilty as charged. "My family owns it. I grew up in this kitchen, learning to make pasta before I could tie my shoes. Food isn't just fuel here, it's love, family, tradition." He paused, looking almost embarrassed. "Sorry, I get carried away." "No, it's beautiful," Emma said softly. "I wish I had that kind of passion for something." Their eyes met again, and this time the moment stretched, electric and full of possibility. Madison cleared her throat, breaking the spell. "We'll take your recommendations," Madison said, her eyes dancing with amusement as she glanced between Emma and Jake. Throughout dinner, Jake kept finding reasons to stop by their table, checking on their meal, refilling water glasses, asking if they needed anything. Each time, his eyes would find Emma's, and they'd share a smile that felt like a secret. The food was incredible, but Emma barely tasted it. She was too aware of Jake moving through the restaurant, too conscious of the way her heart raced when he approached their table. You know he's totally into you, right? Madison whispered after Jake left to put in their dessert order. Don't be ridiculous. Emma Richardson, I've known you since freshman year at Wellesley. I've never seen you look at anyone the way you're looking at that waiter. Emma's stomach tightened. Even if that were true, which it's not, my mother would die. You know her rules. Suitable men only. Your mother's rules are archaic and classist, Madison said bluntly. When are you going to start living for yourself? Before Emma could answer, Jake returned with 2 perfect slices of tiramisu. These are on the house, he said. My Nona made them this afternoon, and she insists that beautiful women should never pay for dessert. We can't accept. Emma started. Please, Jake interrupted gently. She'll be heartbroken if you refuse. Plus, I told her about you. He stopped, looking embarrassed. I mentioned we had really nice customers tonight. Emma felt her heart flutter. You talked about us. Well, mostly you, Jake admitted, running a hand through his hair. I told her I met someone who… Never mind. Enjoy the dessert. He walked away quickly, and Madison practically squealed. Oh my God, Emma. He's smitten. Madison, stop. This is crazy. I can't. He's a waiter. The words were out before she could stop them, and they hung in the air, ugly and elitist. Emma cringed, hearing her mother's voice in her own words. Listen to yourself, Madison said quietly. Since when do you judge people by their jobs? You're right. I'm sorry. Emma pushed the tiramisu around with her fork. But you know my mother. She'd never approve. She barely tolerates that I work in art instead of finance. A relationship with a waiter? She'd disown me. So don't tell her. Emma looked up sharply. What? Don't tell her. Madison repeated. Live a little, Emma. Have some fun. Get to know this guy. What Victoria doesn't know won't hurt her. I can't lie to my mother. I'm not saying marry him in secret. I'm saying go out with him. See if this spark is real. You're 24 years old, for God's sake. You deserve to make your own choices. Emma bit her lip, her eyes drifting to where Jake was laughing with an elderly couple at another table. He had an easiness about him, a genuine warmth that was so different from the calculated charm of the men her mother approved of. I don't even know if you want to see me again, Emma said softly. As if on cue, Jake appeared with their check. I hope you enjoyed everything, he said, that warm smile in place. Then, with what seemed like great courage, he added, and I was wondering if maybe you'd like to come back sometime. Maybe not as customers. He was looking directly at Emma now. I make a mean carbonara on my nights off, and I know this great little park with the best view of the Manhattan skyline. Madison kicked Emma under the table. I like that, Emma heard herself say, her heart pounding. I'd like that a lot. Jake's smile could have lit up the entire borough. Yeah? That's great. Can I get your number? Emma hesitated for just a moment. One last second of doubt before she crossed a line she'd never crossed before. Then she took the pen he offered and wrote her number on his order pad. I'm Emma, she said. I know, Jake replied softly. I asked the hostess after you walked in. I'm Jake Morrison. I know, Emma echoed, smiling. You told us when you took our order. They both laughed, and in that moment, Emma felt something she hadn't felt in years, possibility. The sense that her life might be about to change in wonderful, terrifying ways. As Emma and Madison left Bella Knott, Emma turned back one last time. Jake was watching from the window, and when their eyes met, he waved. Emma waved back, her stomach full of butterflies. You're going to see him again, aren't you? Madison asked as they hailed a cab. Yes, Emma said, surprising herself with her certainty. Yes, I am. And your mother? Emma thought about Victoria, about her rigid expectations and social climbing and endless rules about who was suitable and who wasn't. For once in her life, Emma decided to put her own happiness first. What my mother doesn't know won't hurt her, Emma said, echoing Madison's earlier words. What Emma didn't know, couldn't have known, was that this decision would set in motion events that would test every relationship she had, force her to examine who she really was, and ultimately make her choose between the life she'd always known and the love she never expected. But that night, walking toward the cab with her best friend, Emma was simply a young woman who'd met an incredible man and couldn't wait to see him again. Her phone buzzed before she even made it home. Hi, Emma, it's Jake. I know we just said goodbye, but I couldn't wait. Would you be free for coffee tomorrow? I know this amazing place in Prospect Park. Jay. Emma's fingers flew over the keyboard. Tomorrow sounds perfect. What time? How about 10 a.m.? I want to spend the whole day with you, if you'll let me. Emma bit her lip, smiling so widely her cheeks hurt. The whole day sounds even better. See you at 10. Madison read the exchange over Emma's shoulder and squeezed her arm. This is going to be good, I can feel it. Or it's going to be a disaster, Emma said. But she was still smiling. Maybe, Madison agreed. But isn't it time you took a chance on something real instead of something safe? Emma thought about Bradley Wentworth, about her mother's dinner party on Thursday, about the life of careful choices and suitable matches that stretched out before her like a beige carpet. Then she thought about Jake's smile, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his family, the electricity she'd felt when their hands had accidentally touched as he set down her water glass. Yes, she said quietly. It's definitely time. Coffee and consequences. Emma woke up the next morning with a mixture of excitement and anxiety churning in her stomach. She stood in front of her closet for 20 minutes, trying to decide what to wear. Everything looked either too formal or like she was trying too hard. Finally, she settled on dark jeans, ankle boots, and a soft cream sweater, casual but put together. She left her auburn hair down in loose waves and kept her makeup natural. As she studied herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman looking back. Her eyes were bright with anticipation, her cheeks flushed. When was the last time she'd felt this alive? The doorbell rang at exactly 9:45 a.m. Emma opened it to find Jake standing there in jeans and a navy blue Henley, holding 2 cups of coffee. I know we were supposed to meet at the park, he said, that endearing sheepish smile on his face. But I couldn't wait. I hope that's not creepy. Also, I wasn't sure how you take your coffee, so I got one black and one with cream and sugar. And you can have whichever you want, or neither, or… He laughed at himself. I'm babbling. I'm nervous. Emma felt her anxiety melt away. You're nervous? Terrified. Jake admitted. I asked out the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I have no idea why she said yes. Maybe because you're the first person in a long time who looked at me like I was more than my last name, Emma said softly, surprised by her own honesty. Jake's expression grew serious. Emma Richardson, he said thoughtfully. Should I know that last name? Probably not, if you don't run in certain circles. Try me. Emma hesitated, then decided honesty was best. Richardson and Associates. It's an investment firm. My mother runs it. Ah. Jake's eyebrows rose. So you're that kind of rich. Does it matter? Emma asked, holding her breath. Jake was quiet for a moment, then shook his head. Only if it matters to you. I'm a waiter from Brooklyn whose biggest asset is his Nona's recipe for marinara sauce. If that's going to be a problem. It's not, Emma interrupted firmly. Believe me, it's not. Jake's smile returned, warm and genuine. Good. Then let's go enjoy this beautiful day. They walked to Prospect Park, their conversation flowing as easily as if they'd known each other for years. Jake told her about growing up in his family's restaurant, about his dreams of opening his own place someday, something small and intimate where every dish told a story. What about you? He asked as they sat on a bench overlooking the lake, the Manhattan skyline glittering in the distance. What does Emma Richardson want out of life? It was such a simple question, but Emma found herself struggling to answer. I don't know, she finally admitted. I work as an assistant curator at the Morgan Gallery. I'm good at it, and I like art, but… She trailed off. But… Jake prompted gently. But I'm not sure if I chose it because I love it or because it was on my mother's approved list of acceptable careers. Emma was shocked to hear herself say it out loud. She'd never admitted that to anyone, not even Madison. That sounds lonely, Jake said quietly. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. It is. I've spent my whole life trying to be the daughter my mother wants. The perfect schools, the perfect job, dating the perfect men. But I'm not happy, Jake. And meeting you made me realize that. Jake reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm, slightly calloused from years of restaurant work, and Emma felt that now familiar electricity shoot through her at his touch. For what it's worth, he said, I think you're already perfect. Not the fake kind of perfect your mom wants, the real kind. You're kind and smart and beautiful, and you have terrible taste in wine. Emma laughed through her tears. I do not. You ordered a Riesling with ravioli last night. That's a crime against Italian cuisine. Well, forgive me for not being a sommelier. That's what I'm here for, Jake said, squeezing her hand. To educate your palate and, hopefully, show you that there's more to life than living up to someone else's expectations. They spent the entire day together, just as Jake had hoped. They walked through the park, got lunch from a food truck, Emma's first food truck experience, which delighted Jake, and talked about everything and nothing. Jake made Emma laugh until her sides hurt with stories about restaurant disasters and eccentric customers. Emma found herself opening up about her dreams, the ones she'd buried under layers of should and must. I always wanted to paint, she confessed as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Not curate other people's art, but create my own. But my mother said it wasn't practical, that I'd never make a living, that it was a hobby, not a career. It's not too late, Jake said. You're 24, not 94. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is simple, and we just make it complicated. Jake turned to face her fully, his dark eyes serious. Emma, I know we just met, but I feel something here. Something real. And life's too short to live for other people. I learned that when my dad died. I'm so sorry, Emma said, her hand finding his. He had a heart attack 2 years ago. Worked himself to death at the restaurant. And you know what his biggest regret was? That he never took that trip to Italy he always talked about. He kept saying, someday. And someday never came. Jake's voice was thick with emotion. I don't want to live like that. I don't want you to live like that either. Emma felt something crack open inside her chest. All the fear and repression and people-pleasing of the past 24 years. I don't want to either, she whispered. Then don't, Jake said simply. He leaned in slowly, giving Emma plenty of time to pull away. But she didn't want to pull away. She wanted this, wanted him, more than she'd wanted anything in a long time. When their lips met, it felt like coming home. Jake kissed her gently, reverently, like she was something precious. Emma's hands found their way into his dark hair, and she poured everything into that kiss. All her loneliness and longing and hope for something more. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Jake rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he admitted. I know it's crazy fast, but I am. Me too, Emma breathed. Me too. They stayed in the park until the stars came out, wrapped in each other's arms, talking and kissing and dreaming about a future that felt impossibly bright. It was only when Emma's phone buzzed insistently that reality intruded. Where are you? Dinner at the plaza at 7. Don't be late. Mother. Emma's stomach dropped. She'd completely forgotten about dinner with her mother. I have to go, she said reluctantly, pulling away from Jake. Everything okay? He asked, concern evident in his voice. Just my mother. We have dinner plans. Emma didn't mention that these plans had been made without her input, as usual. Jake walked her to the park entrance and called her an Uber. When can I see you again? He asked. Soon, Emma promised. Tomorrow? The day after? How about every day? Jake suggested with a grin. Emma laughed, but her heart clenched. How was she going to pull this off? Her mother monitored her schedule like a hawk, always knowing where Emma was, who she was with, what she was doing. I'll text you, she said, kissing him one more time. I promise. Emma arrived at the plaza 15 minutes late, her lips still tingling from Jake's goodbye kiss, her hair windblown from their walk in the park. She probably looked disheveled, but for once, she didn't care. That changed the moment she saw her mother's face. Victoria Richardson sat ramrod straight at their usual table, her expression glacial. Next to her sat an older woman Emma recognized from various society functions, and across from them was a young man in a perfectly tailored suit, Bradley Wentworth, no doubt. You're late, Victoria said coldly as Emma approached. And you look like you've been. What exactly have you been doing? I went for a walk in the park, Emma said, which was technically true. Without telling me? Without answering my texts. Emma checked her phone and realized with horror that she'd missed 7 messages and 3 calls from her mother. She'd been so wrapped up in Jake that she'd ignored everything else. I'm sorry, she said automatically, slipping into the familiar role of apologetic daughter. I lost track of time. Clearly, Victoria's lips were pressed into a thin line. This is Mrs. Wentworth and her son Bradley. We've been waiting for you. I'm so sorry, Emma repeated, shaking their hands. Bradley's grip was firm but impersonal, his smile practiced. He was handsome in a generic way, sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, strong jaw. The kind of man who looked good in a tuxedo and knew all the right things to say at fundraisers. No worries, Bradley said smoothly. I understand getting caught up in the city. It's a beautiful day. They sat down and Victoria immediately took control of the conversation, steering it toward Bradley's accomplishments, Harvard Law, job offer from a prestigious firm, family lineage that stretched back to the Mayflower. Bradley played his part perfectly, humble bragging about his achievements while asking polite questions about Emma's work at the gallery. Emma tried to engage, she really did, but all she could think about was Jake, his genuine smile, his passion for cooking, the way he looked at her like she hung the moon. Bradley was everything her mother wanted, but there was no spark, no connection, no electricity. Emma tells me she's interested in expanding the gallery's modern collection. Victoria lied smoothly. Emma had said no such thing, but she knew better than to contradict her mother in public. How fascinating, Bradley said in a tone that suggested he found it anything but fascinating. Though I have to admit, I'm more of a golf man myself. Do you play, Emma? No, Emma said shortly. You should learn, Victoria interjected. It's excellent for networking. The dinner dragged on interminably. Bradley was perfectly pleasant, perfectly polite, and perfectly boring. Emma could see the life her mother had planned for her stretching out like a prison sentence. Marriage to someone suitable, a house in the right neighborhood, 2.5 children enrolled in the right private schools, endless rounds of charity events and country club dinners. Safe appropriate, soul-crushing. When Bradley excused himself to take a phone call, Victoria leaned in close. He's perfect for you, Emma. His family has the right connections. His future is secure. And he finds you attractive. This is exactly the kind of match you should be pursuing. Mother, I just met him. First impressions matter. And Bradley is clearly smitten. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Unlike whatever has you so distracted this evening. Where were you really today? Emma's heart raced. I told you, walking in the park. Alone? The lie was right there, easy and safe. But Emma thought about Jake's words. Life's too short to live for other people. And found herself unable to say it. No, she admitted. I was with someone. Victoria's expression sharpened. Who? A friend. What kind of friend? Male or female? Emma hesitated too long, and Victoria's face went cold. A man. You were with Emmanuel. It wasn't a question. Who is he? Do I know his family? Mother. Emma Richardson, answer me. Who is this person? Emma felt panic rising in her chest. She couldn't tell her mother about Jake. Not yet. Not like this. Just someone I met recently. It's not serious. Then it won't be a problem to stop seeing him, Victoria said flatly. Bradley Wentworth is a far better prospect than whatever unsuitable man has caught your attention. You will see Bradley again, and you will not waste your time with anyone else. Do I make myself clear? Emma felt her brief moment of courage crumbling. This was her mother, the woman who'd raised her, who'd given her everything, who expected perfection and obedience in return. Yes, mother, she heard herself say, hating how small her voice sounded. But even as she agreed, Emma knew she was lying. She couldn't give up Jake. Not when she'd just found him. Not when he made her feel alive for the first time in her life. Bradley returned to the table, and Emma endured the rest of dinner with a fixed smile on her face. When Bradley asked for her number, she gave it to him, feeling Victoria's approving gaze on her the entire time. That night, alone in her apartment, Emma stared at her phone. She had messages from both men. Bradley. Lovely evening. Would you like to have dinner again Thursday? I know a great new French place. Jake. I can't stop thinking about you. Today was perfect. Sweet dreams. Beautiful. Emma's finger hovered over Jake's message. She should end this now, before it went any further. Before her mother found out. Before someone got hurt. But instead, she typed, Today was perfect. When can I see you again? His response was immediate. Tomorrow? Always tomorrow with you. Emma smiled despite herself, despite the knot of anxiety in her stomach, despite knowing she was walking into dangerous territory. Tomorrow. I'll text you in the morning. She fell asleep with her phone clutched in her hand, dreaming of dark eyes and genuine smiles and a future that was probably impossible but felt so right. Double lives. The next 3 weeks were the happiest and most stressful of Emma's life. By day, she played the dutiful daughter. She went on 3 more dates with Bradley, each one more tedious than the last. She attended her mother's charity events, smiled at the right people, wore the right clothes, said the right things. She was the perfect Emma Richardson, heir to a fortune and a legacy of carefully curated respectability. But the moments she lived for were the stolen hours with Jake. They met in Brooklyn, far from her mother's world and watchful eyes. Jake showed her his New York, the real one, not the glossy, sanitized version she'd always known. They ate pizza from hole-in-the-wall joints at midnight, explored street art in Bushwick, took the ferry to Staten Island just to watch the sunset. Jake taught her to make fresh pasta in his tiny apartment kitchen, laughing when she got flour everywhere. You're a disaster, he said affectionately, wiping a smudge of dough from her nose. I'm a rich girl who never had to cook, Emma counted. But she was smiling. We had people for that. Well, now you have me for that. Jake pulled her close, kissing her softly. And I'm much better company than hired help. Much better, Emma agreed, wrapping her arms around his neck. They spent whole days in bed in Jake's apartment, talking and making love and dreaming out loud. Jake spoke about his plans for a restaurant, nothing fancy, just a neighborhood place where people could feel at home. Emma found herself opening up about her secret dream of painting, and to her surprise, Jake bought her a set of paints and a canvas. "Start now," he said simply. "Stop waiting for permission." Emma did start painting, hiding the canvases in Jake's apartment since there was no way she could keep them in her own place without her mother finding them. It felt rebellious and exciting and absolutely terrifying. "You're really good," Jake said, studying a painting Emma had done of the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. "You have a real eye for color and light." "You're biased," Emma said, but she couldn't help the flush of pleasure. "Maybe," Jake admitted, pulling her onto his lap. "But I'm also right. You should show these, enter them in a gallery show or something." "My mother would die." "Your mother doesn't have to know everything about your life," Jake pointed out, his hands settling on her waist. "You're an adult, Emma. When are you going to start acting like one?" It was a fair question, one that Emma struggled with every day. She was living a double life, and the strain was starting to show. Madison noticed first. "You look exhausted," she said over coffee one Saturday morning. "But also, happy? It's a weird combination." "I'm seeing Jake," Emma admitted, trusting her best friend completely. "A lot. And I'm still going on dates with Bradley to keep my mother happy, which makes me feel like a terrible person." "Have you slept with Bradley?" "God, no. I can barely get through dinner with him without checking my phone to see if Jake texted." Madison stirred her latte thoughtfully. "You know this can't last, right? The double life thing. Eventually, you're going to have to choose." "I know," Emma said miserably. "But how do I choose between my family and Anne?" "The man you're falling in love with?" Emma's breath caught. "I haven't said that. You don't have to. It's written all over your face every time his name comes up." Madison reached across the table and squeezed Emma's hand. "For what it's worth, I think Jake is incredible. He's genuine and kind, and he makes you happier than I've ever seen you. But your mother is never going to accept him." "I know," Emma whispered. "So what are you going to do?" Emma didn't have an answer. The crisis came on a Wednesday evening in early December. Emma was supposed to be at a Morgan Library fundraiser, one of those events her mother considered mandatory. But Jake had the night off, and he'd planned something special. Emma told her mother she was feeling ill and begged off the event, feeling guilty but unable to resist the pull of being with Jake. He picked her up in his beat-up Toyota, such a contrast to Bradley's Mercedes, and drove her to a surprise location, a tiny art studio in Brooklyn where a friend of his taught painting classes. "I rented it for the night," Jake said, his eyes dancing with excitement. "I thought we could paint together. You can teach me, and we can make a mess and just be ourselves." Emma felt her heart swell. Bradley had never once asked about her art, had never shown interest in her dreams. But Jake saw her, really saw her. They spent hours painting, laughing, and getting covered in acrylics. Jake was terrible at painting, which made Emma laugh until she cried. But he tried so hard, his tongue sticking out in concentration as he attempted to capture the roses Emma had arranged on a table. "You're adorable when you're focused," Emma said, kissing his paint-smudged cheek. "You're adorable all the time," Jake counted, pulling her close despite their paint-covered hands. "I'm crazy about you, Emma Richardson. Like, completely, totally crazy about you." "I'm crazy about you too," Emma admitted, her heart racing. "Yeah?" Jake's smile was brilliant. "Crazy enough to be my girlfriend?" "Officially." Emma knew she should say no. She was technically still dating Bradley, still playing the part of the obedient daughter. But looking into Jake's hopeful eyes, feeling the warmth of his arms around her, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, I want to be your girlfriend." Jake kissed her then, deep and passionate, and Emma forgot about everything else. Her mother's expectations, Bradley's persistence, the precarious double life she was leading. For that moment, there was only Jake and the feeling of being exactly where she belonged. They were so wrapped up in each other that Emma didn't hear her phone ringing, didn't see the increasingly frantic texts from her mother, didn't notice the 7 missed calls. It wasn't until they were leaving the studio, paint-stained and happy, that Emma finally checked her phone and felt her blood run cold. "Where are you?" "I called the Morgan Library, and they said you never arrived." "Emma, answer your phone immediately." "I'm sending Richard to your apartment. If you're not there, we need to talk about your recent behavior." "Emma Richardson, I am not playing games." "Call me NOW." The last message had come through 10 minutes ago. "I'm on my way to your apartment. You'd better be there." "Oh God," Emma breathed, panic flooding her system. Oh God, oh God, oh God. What's wrong? Jake asked immediately, concern replacing his earlier joy. My mother. She knows I wasn't at the fundraiser. She's going to my apartment. Emma's hands were shaking. I need to get home. Now. Jake didn't ask questions, just grabbed her hand and ran for his car. He drove as fast as safely possible. But Emma knew they wouldn't make it in time. Her apartment was in Manhattan, at least 30 minutes away. It's going to be okay, Jake said, though he looked worried. You're an adult. You're allowed to skip an event. You don't understand, Emma said, her voice edged with hysteria. My mother doesn't tolerate disobedience, and she's going to ask where I was. And I can't lie to her, not to her face, Anne. Then tell her the truth, Jake said firmly. Tell her about us. She'll make me stop seeing you. She can't make you do anything. You're 24 years old. Emma wanted to believe that, but she knew better. Victoria Richardson had ways of getting what she wanted: financial pressure, emotional manipulation, the threat of cutting Emma off completely. And Emma, despite everything, wasn't sure she was strong enough to stand up to her mother. Jake pulled up in front of Emma's building just as Victoria's town car arrived. Perfect. Horrible timing. Victoria stepped out of the car, her expression thunderous. Her eyes went immediately to Jake's car, to Emma's paint-stained clothes, to Jake himself. Who is this? Victoria demanded, her voice icy. Emma's heart was pounding so hard she thought she might be sick. Mother, I can explain. Get inside. Now. Victoria's tone left no room for argument. Emma looked at Jake, his expression concerned and confused. It's okay, she mouthed, though it absolutely wasn't. Emma, Jake started. I'll call you, Emma promised, already getting out of the car. She watched Jake drive away, her heart breaking, before turning to face her mother. Victoria's face was a mask of fury barely contained by her iron self-control. Inside Emma's apartment, Victoria finally unleashed. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this was for me? The entire board was at that fundraiser, and my own daughter couldn't be bothered to show up. And then I find you with some man in a beat-up car, covered in paint like a child. I was at an art studio, Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady. I was painting. Painting. Victoria said the word like it was something obscene, instead of attending to your responsibilities. And who was that man? Here it was. The moment Emma had been dreading. She could lie, make up some story about a friend, but she thought about Jake's words, tell her the truth, and found courage she didn't know she had. His name is Jake Morrison. He's my boyfriend. The silence that followed was deafening. Your boyfriend, Victoria repeated slowly, dangerously. And what exactly does Jake Morrison do for a living? He works in a restaurant. He works in a restaurant, Victoria echoed, her voice dripping with disdain. Let me guess, he's a waiter. Emma lifted her chin. Yes. He's a waiter. And he's kind and talented, and he makes me happy. Happy. Victoria laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You foolish girl. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? Bradley Wentworth is interested in you. His family has connections that could set you up for life. And you're wasting your time with a waiter? Jake is not a waste of time, Emma said, feeling her own anger rise. He's more genuine than anyone in your precious social circle. He sees me as a person, not a business opportunity. Don't be naive. This man sees your last name and your bank account. That's all any of these people ever see. That's not true, Emma protested. Jake didn't even know who I was when we met. And I suppose he conveniently found out later? Please, Emma. I didn't raise you to be this stupid. The words stung. But Emma held her ground. You didn't raise me at all, Mother. Nannies and boarding schools raised me. You were too busy building your empire. Victoria's eyes flashed dangerously. How dare you? It's true, and you know it. You care more about appearances and social standing than you've ever cared about me, about what I want or need or feel. I have given you everything, Victoria hissed. The best schools, the best opportunities, a chance at a life most people only dream of. And this is how you repay me? By throwing it all away for some kitchen worker? He's not just a kitchen worker. He's the first person who's ever made me feel like I matter for who I am, not what I can do for someone else's reputation. Victoria was silent for a long moment, her expression shifting from anger to something harder, more calculating. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and measured. You have a choice to make, Emma. You can continue this ridiculous infatuation with your waiter and lose everything, your trust fund, your apartment, your position at the gallery. I will cut you off completely. Or you can end this nonsense, focus on Bradley Wentworth, and maintain the life you've always known. Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. You can't be serious. I am completely serious. I will not have my daughter dating service staff. It's humiliating. So you're asking me to choose between you and Jake? I'm not asking Emma. I'm telling you, end it with this waiter or face the consequences. Emma thought about her apartment, paid for by her mother, her job, secured through her mother's connections, her entire life, funded and controlled by Victoria Richardson's money and influence. But she also thought about Jake's arms around her, his laughter, his dreams, the way he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. She thought about painting in his tiny apartment, about the freedom she felt when she was with him, about the person she was becoming instead of the person her mother demanded she be. I need time to think, Emma said finally. You have until Monday, Victoria said, picking up her purse. Make the right choice, Emma. Don't throw your life away for something that won't last. After her mother left, Emma collapsed on her couch, shaking. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. Emma stared at the message, tears streaming down her face. She had 3 days to make the most important decision of her life, and she had absolutely no idea what to do. The decision. Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mother's ultimatum echoing in her mind. End it with this waiter, or face the consequences. Part of her, the part that had been trained since childhood to obey, to seek approval, to avoid conflict, wanted to give in. It would be so easy to text Jake, to make up some excuse, to slip back into the comfortable numbness of her old life. But another part of her, the part that Jake had awakened, rebelled at the very thought. Why should she give up the first real happiness she'd found in years? Why should her mother get to dictate who she loved? Her phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Jake, can't sleep. Keep thinking about you. Whatever happened with your mom, we'll figure it out together. I promise. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jake didn't know what he was promising. He didn't understand the world she came from, the power her mother wielded, the cost of defying Victoria Richardson. She typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally settling on, can I come over? Always. I'll put on coffee. Emma grabbed her keys and called an Uber. 20 minutes later, she was standing at Jake's door, disheveled and emotional and desperate for the comfort of his arms. He pulled her inside without a word, wrapping her in a hug so tight she could barely breathe. Emma buried her face in his chest and finally let herself cry. For the impossible choice she faced, for the mother who valued appearances over her daughter's happiness, for the future that seemed to be crumbling around her. Tell me what happened, Jake said softly, guiding her to the couch. So Emma told him everything. Her mother's ultimatum, the threat to cut her off, the 3-day deadline. Jake's expression grew darker with each revelation. She can't do that, he said when Emma finished. That's emotional blackmail. That's my mother, Emma said bitterly. Everything's transactional with her. Love, support, acceptance. It all comes with conditions. Jake took her hands, his dark eyes intense. Emma, listen to me. I know I'm just a waiter from Brooklyn. I know I can't offer you the kind of life you're used to. But I love you. I'm completely, head over heels in love with you. And if you'll have me, I will spend every day trying to make you happy. Emma's breath caught. You love me? I've loved you since that first night at Bella Nut, when you smiled at me like I was someone worth knowing instead of just the help. Jake's voice was rough with emotion. I love your laugh, your kindness, the way you get paint in your hair when you're concentrating. I love the woman you are when you're not trying to be what your mother wants. And I know 3 weeks isn't long, but when you know, you know. I love you too, Emma whispered, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. But they felt right, felt true. I'm in love with you, Jake Morrison, and I don't know how to choose between you and my entire life. Then don't choose, Jake said. We'll figure something out. I can get more shifts at the restaurant. You could find another job, get your own apartment. With what money? Emma interrupted. Jake, my mother pays for everything. My apartment, my car, half my salary at the gallery. It's all tied to her. Without her support, I have maybe $3,000 in my personal account. That wouldn't last a month in New York. Jake was quiet for a moment, processing this. So you're saying you're financially dependent on her? Completely. Emma felt shame wash over her. I know how pathetic that sounds. I'm 24 and I've never had to support myself. I wouldn't even know how to start. It's not pathetic, Jake said firmly. It's what your mother wanted, to keep you dependent so she could control you. His jaw tightened. But Emma, is that really how you want to live? Under someone's thumb forever? No, Emma admitted. God, no. But I'm scared, Jake. What if I can't make it on my own? What if I choose you and we don't work out? And I've lost everything for nothing? Jake flinched slightly at that, but his voice was steady when he spoke. I can't promise we'll work out forever. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise I'll never try to control you the way your mother does. I can promise I'll support your dreams, even the scary ones. And I can promise that whatever happens, you won't regret choosing yourself. Choosing myself. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Jake said gently. Not choosing between your mom and me. Choosing between living the life she wants and living the life you want. Emma felt the truth of his words settle in her chest. He was right. This wasn't just about a relationship. It was about her entire future, her autonomy, her identity. I need to think, she said finally. I need to really consider what I'm willing to sacrifice and what I'm not. Of course, Jake said, though she could see the fear in his eyes. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Emma spent the next 2 days in a fog of indecision. She went through the motions at work, barely hearing her colleagues' conversations. She ignored texts from Bradley asking about their next date. She avoided her mother's calls. Madison found her Saturday afternoon sitting alone in a coffee shop in the village, staring blankly at her untouched latte. Okay, enough, Madison said, sliding into the seat across from her. I've been calling you for 2 days. What's going on? Emma told her everything, the ultimatum, Jake's confession of love, her own terror at the thought of losing her safety net. So what are you going to do? Madison asked when Emma finished. I don't know, Emma said miserably. If I choose Jake, I lose my apartment, my job, probably my entire relationship with my mother. But if I choose my mother's approval, I lose the first real love I've ever known. Can I tell you something that might help? Madison said, her expression serious. Please. I've known you for 6 years, Emma. And in all that time, I've watched you shrink yourself to fit into your mother's idea of who you should be. You've dated men you didn't love because they had the right pedigree. You've worked at a job that bores you because it was appropriate. You've lived in a beautiful cage. And you've convinced yourself that beautiful cages are better than freedom. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Madison. I'm not done. Madison continued gently. Then you met Jake. And for the first time ever, I saw you come alive. You laugh more. You dream more. You paint, for God's sake. Something you've wanted to do your entire life, but never had the courage to pursue. Jake didn't make you a different person. He helped you become who you really are. But what if I can't survive without my mother's money? Emma whispered. You're smart, talented, and educated. Of course you can survive. It might not be easy, and you might have to make sacrifices, but you can do it. Madison reached across the table and grabbed Emma's hands. The question isn't whether you can survive. It's whether you can live, really live, under your mother's control for the rest of your life. Emma thought about that. Thought about 40, 50 more years of seeking her mother's approval, of dating men like Bradley, of burying her dreams under a pile of should and must and can't. I can't, she realized aloud. I can't do that anymore. Then you have your answer, Madison said softly. Emma looked at her best friend, feeling something like clarity settle over her for the first time in days. If I do this, if I choose Jake, choose myself, it's going to be hard. Really hard. The best things usually are. I might fail. I might regret it. Or, Madison said with a small smile, you might succeed. You might build a life that's messy and uncertain, but completely, authentically yours. Isn't that worth the risk? Emma thought about Jake's paint-smudged smile, about the way her heart felt light when she was with him, about the paintings she'd been hiding because her mother wouldn't approve. Yeah, she said, feeling courage bloom in her chest. Yeah, it is. Emma called Jake that evening. I've made my decision, she said without preamble. She heard him inhale sharply. N. I choose you. I choose me. I choose a life that's mine, even if it's scary. The sound Jake made was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Really? Are you sure? I'm terrified, Emma admitted. But I'm sure. I'm going to tell my mother tomorrow. And then I'm going to figure out how to build a life that doesn't depend on her approval or her money. We'll figure it out together, Jake said firmly. I love you so much, Emma. You're so brave. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm about to jump off a cliff. Then it's a good thing I'll be right there to catch you. Emma smiled through her tears. I love you, Jake Morrison. I love you too. More than I can possibly say. They talked for hours, making plans, dreaming about the future, helping each other believe that this crazy, risky decision might actually work out. Emma fell asleep that night with her phone still in her hand and a smile on her face, feeling more at peace than she had in weeks. Tomorrow, she would face her mother. Tomorrow, her life would change forever. But tonight, she was simply a woman in love, brave enough to choose her own happiness over someone else's expectations. And that felt like its own kind of miracle. The confrontation, Sunday morning dawned gray and cold, matching Emma's mood. She dressed carefully in a navy suit, armor for the battle ahead, and drove to her mother's penthouse on the Upper East Side. Victoria's apartment was everything Emma's wasn't: pristine, expensive, and utterly devoid of warmth. The white marble floors gleamed. The modern art on the walls was museum quality, and every surface was clear of clutter or personality. It looked like a spread from Architectural Digest, not a home. Victoria herself was already dressed and made up perfectly despite the early hour. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a coffee cup in hand, her expression unreadable. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Victoria said without turning around. "We need to talk," Emma said, proud that her voice was steady. "Indeed we do. Have you made your decision?" Emma took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I have. I'm choosing Jake." Victoria's cup hit the marble counter with a sharp click. She turned slowly, her face a mask of ice. "I see. So you're choosing to throw away your entire future for a fling with the help." "It's not a fling, Mother. I love him." "You barely know him. I know him well enough to know that he sees me as a person, not a pawn in a social chess game." Victoria's eyes flashed. "Don't be dramatic, Emma. Everything I've done has been for your benefit. The schools, the connections, the opportunities. All of it was to ensure you had the best possible life." "The best possible life according to you," Emma counted. "But you never asked what I wanted. You just assumed I'd fall in line with your plans. Because I'm your mother, and I know what's best for you." "No," Emma said firmly. "You know what you think is best for your image. There's a difference." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "How dare you? How dare I tell the truth?" Emma felt years of repressed frustration bubbling up. "You've controlled every aspect of my life since I was born. What I wore, where I went to school, who I was friends with, what career was acceptable. And I went along with it because I wanted your approval. I wanted you to love me." "I do love you," Victoria said, but her voice was cold. "No, you love the idea of me. The perfect daughter who looks good at fundraisers and marries the right kind of man. But you don't actually know me, Mother. You don't know that I hate golf, and that I've always wanted to paint. You don't know that I cry during romantic comedies or that my favorite food is pizza from a street vendor. You don't know me because you've never bothered to ask." Victoria was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was harder than Emma had ever heard it. "And this waiter knows you? After 3 weeks?" "Yes," Emma said simply. "He does. He listens when I talk. He encourages my dreams instead of dismissing them. He makes me laugh and makes me feel safe and makes me want to be brave. That's more than anyone in your world has ever done for me. He makes you feel brave enough to destroy your life, apparently." Victoria's tone was cutting. "Do you have any idea what you're giving up? Your apartment is worth $2 million. Your trust fund is worth $30 million. Your position at the Morgan Gallery could lead to a curator role within 5 years. And you're throwing it all away for what? Love." "Please, Emma. Love doesn't pay the bills." "No, but it makes life worth living," Emma said quietly. "And I'd rather struggle with someone who loves me than live in luxury with people who only care about my last name." Victoria's face hardened further. "Fine. If that's your choice, then prepare to live with the consequences. As of today, you are no longer welcome in this family. Your apartment lease will not be renewed. Your credit cards are canceled. Your position at the gallery, which I secured for you, will be terminated by the end of the week." Emma felt panic flutter in her chest but pushed it down. She'd expected this. "I understand." "Do you?" Victoria stepped closer, her voice dropping to something almost dangerous. "Do you really understand what you're doing? You have no job experience outside the gallery. You have no practical skills. You've lived a privileged life your entire existence, and now you're going to find out what the real world is like. And when this waiter realizes you're not the wealthy heiress anymore, when you're just another struggling girl with nothing to offer, he'll leave you. And you'll have no one to turn to because I will not, I repeat, will not take you back." "I'm not asking you to," Emma said, even as her heart broke. "If your love for me is so conditional that you disown me for choosing my own happiness, then maybe I'm better off without it." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and final. For just a moment, Emma thought she saw something flicker in her mother's eyes, hurt maybe, or regret. But it vanished quickly, replaced by cold fury. "Get out," Victoria said quietly. "You have until the end of the month to vacate the apartment. After that, I never want to see you again." "Mother," Emma started, feeling tears threaten. "Get out." Emma left before the tears could fall, before she could see if her mother was crying too. She made it to her car before she broke down, sobbing so hard she could barely catch her breath. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. She'd chosen herself, chosen Jake, chosen freedom over security. And it hurt more than she ever imagined. Her phone rang. Jake, how did it go? He asked gently. She disowned me, Emma said through her tears. I'm officially cut off. No apartment, no job, no family. Come to my place, Jake said immediately. Right now. Come home to me. Home. Such a strange word for a cramped studio apartment in Brooklyn. But as Emma drove across the bridge, leaving Manhattan and her old life behind, it felt exactly right. Jake was waiting outside his building when she arrived. He pulled her into his arms the moment she got out of the car, and Emma clung to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had just shifted beneath her feet. You did the right thing, he murmured into her hair. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. I'm homeless and jobless and completely cut off from everyone I've ever known, Emma said, her voice muffled against his chest. How is that the right thing? Because you're free, Jake said simply. For the first time in your life, you're actually free. They went up to his apartment, and Emma collapsed on the futon that served as Jake's couch. She felt hollowed out, exhausted from the emotional confrontation. Jake disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a steaming mug of hot chocolate. Drink this. And then we're going to make a plan. A plan for what? My spectacular failure? A plan for your spectacular future, Jake corrected. Step 1. You move in here. I know it's not what you're used to, but it's yours for as long as you need it. Emma looked around the tiny studio, maybe 400 square feet total, with a kitchenette in one corner and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Her walk-in closet in her old apartment had been bigger than this entire space. Are you sure? She asked. Jake, this is your space. I don't want to intrude. You couldn't intrude if you tried, Jake said firmly. I want you here. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want this to be ours, not just mine. Emma felt fresh tears, but this time they were good tears. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Step 2. Jake continued. We figure out work. Do you have any savings? About $3,000 in my personal account. Everything else was tied to trust funds my mother controls. Jake winced but nodded. Okay, so $3,000. That's actually not bad. That plus my income can cover rent and food while you look for a job. Jake, I can't let you support me. We support each other, Jake interrupted. That's what partners do. Right now, I'm in a position to help. Maybe in a few months, you'll be in a position to help me. It all evens out. Emma wanted to argue but found she couldn't. The idea of leaning on someone, of accepting help without it coming with strings attached, was foreign but not unwelcome. What kind of job could I even get? She asked. My only experience is assistant curator at a gallery my mother got me into. No one's going to hire me once they find out I was fired. Why would you be fired? Jake asked. My mother said my position would be terminated by the end of the week. Jake's expression darkened. That's illegal. She can't fire you from a job just because you're not dating anymore. She can if she's on the board of directors and has enough influence, Emma said bitterly. The Morgan Gallery owes her a lot of favors. One phone call from her, and I'm done. Then screw the Morgan Gallery, Jake said. There are other galleries in New York, other museums, other ways to work in art. Emma wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. My mother has influence everywhere in the art world. She could blacklist me. She could try, Jake acknowledged, but she can't control everything. And even if she could, you have other options. You could paint. Sell your own work. Jake, I'm not good enough. Yes, you are, he said fiercely. Emma, you're incredibly talented. You just need to believe in yourself the way I believe in you. Emma looked at this man, this wonderful, kind, supportive man who loved her despite her baggage and believed in her despite her doubts, and felt something shift inside her. Okay, she said. Okay, let's try. I'll look for jobs in the art world. And if that doesn't work, I'll figure out something else. I'll paint. I'll wait tables if I have to. I'll make this work. We'll make it work, Jake corrected, pulling her close. Together. The next 2 weeks were a crash course in reality for Emma. She moved out of her luxury apartment and into Jake's studio, cramming her belongings into half a closet and a couple of storage bins. Most of her designer clothes didn't make the cut. They were impractical for her new life and could be sold for extra cash. True to her mother's word, Emma was terminated from the Morgan Gallery. The official reason was restructuring. But Emma knew the truth. Victoria Richardson had made good on her threat. Emma applied to every gallery, museum, and art-related position she could find in New York. The responses were uniformly polite and uniformly negative. Word had clearly gotten around about her falling out with her mother, and no one wanted to hire the disgraced Richardson daughter. Money became tight almost immediately. Jake picked up extra shifts at Bellinot, often working doubles, while Emma took a job waitressing at a diner in Brooklyn. It was humbling, exhausting work, nothing like the prestigious curator position she'd lost. But her coworkers were kind, the tips were decent, and she found she didn't mind it as much as she'd expected. "How was your shift?" Jake asked one evening when she came home with aching feet and the smell of grease in her hair. "Exhausting," Emma admitted, collapsing onto the futon. "But I made $60 in tips, so that helps." Jake sat down and began massaging her feet, and Emma almost cried from the simple kindness of it. Bradley had never once offered to massage her feet. Her mother certainly never had. "I'm proud of you," Jake said softly. "I know this isn't easy, but you're doing it. You're surviving." "Barely," Emma said, but she was smiling. Because despite the exhaustion, despite the financial stress, despite the cramped living space and the loss of her old life, she was happier than she'd ever been. She painted in the mornings before her shifts, losing herself in color and light. Jake would make her coffee and sometimes just sit and watch her work, his expression soft with love. "You should enter some of these in the Brooklyn Art Fair," he suggested one morning as Emma put the finishing touches on a painting of the sunrise over the East River. "The Brooklyn Art Fair?" "Yeah, it's this annual thing where local artists can sell their work. It's pretty low-key, but some people make good money, and it might help you build a client base." Emma bit her lip, looking at her paintings with critical eyes. "I don't know if they're good enough." "There's only one way to find out," Jake said. "Submit them. What's the worst that could happen? They reject me, and I feel terrible about myself. Or they accept you and you sell some paintings and prove to yourself that you're as talented as I know you are." Jake counted. Emma took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll do it." She submitted 5 of her best pieces to the Brooklyn Art Fair and tried not to think about it while she waited for a response. Madison threw Emma a freedom party at her apartment one Saturday night. It was small, just Madison, her boyfriend Derek, a few other college friends, but it felt like family. To Emma, Madison toasted, raising her glass of cheap wine, who finally broke free from the gilded cage and is living her best life in a studio apartment in Brooklyn. Everyone laughed and clinked glasses, and Emma felt her eyes well up with happy tears. "How's it going, really?" Derek asked later, when they had a quiet moment. "We all know your mom cut you off. Are you doing okay financially?" Emma hesitated, then decided on honesty. "It's tight, really tight. Between Jake's income and my tips, we're making it work, but there's no room for error. If either of us got sick or had an emergency." She trailed off. "Have you thought about reaching out to your mother?" he asked gently. "Maybe she's cooled down by now." "No," Emma said firmly. "I can't go back to that life, Derek. I can't live under her thumb anymore, even if it means struggling financially." "Fair enough," he said. "But if you guys need anything, a loan, a place to stay, whatever, you know Madison and I are here, right?" Emma hugged him, grateful for friends who supported her choices even when they seemed crazy. Later that night, curled up next to Jake on the futon, Emma reflected on how much her life had changed in such a short time. 2 months ago, she'd been living in luxury, dating men she didn't love, and slowly dying inside. Now she was broke, exhausted, and happier than she'd ever been. "What are you thinking about?" Jake murmured, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "How weird it is that losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me," Emma admitted. Jake kissed her forehead. "You didn't lose everything. You lost the things that were holding you back." "That's a very optimistic way of looking at it." "That's what you've got me for," Jake said with a grin. "I'm your official optimism provider." Emma laughed, tilting her face up to kiss him properly. "I love you, you know that." "I love you too," Jake said against her lips. "Even when you steal all the blankets." "I do not steal the blankets." "Emma, I woke up this morning literally wrapped in the top sheet while you were burritoed in the comforter." They bickered playfully, laughing and kissing, and Emma thought that this ordinary, beautiful moment was worth every sacrifice. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. Emma almost ignored it, but something made her check. Her heart stopped. "Jake." She breathed. "Jake, oh my God." "What?" "What's wrong?" "The Brooklyn Art Fair. They accepted all 5 of my paintings. I'm in." Jake's whoop of joy probably woke the neighbors, but Emma didn't care. He picked her up and spun her around their tiny apartment, both of them laughing. "I told you," he said, kissing her soundly. "I told you you were talented." Emma felt tears streaming down her face, happy tears this time. "I can't believe it. They actually want my work." "Of course they do. You're amazing." They celebrated that night, drinking more cheap wine and dreaming about the future. Maybe, Just maybe, Emma thought as she fell asleep in Jake's arms, everything was going to be okay. Moving forward, the Brooklyn Art Fair was held on a crisp Saturday in late December, just a week before Christmas. Emma was so nervous she could barely eat breakfast, and Jake practically had to physically push her out the door. "You're going to be amazing," he said for the 100th time, helping her load her paintings into his car. "People are going to love your work, or they're going to hate it, and I'll have wasted the booth fee," Emma fretted. "Stop catastrophizing and get in the car." Emma's booth was small but well lit, positioned near the entrance to the fair. She'd spent hours arranging her 5 paintings, adjusting them until Jake finally told her to stop, or she'd wear a hole in the floor with her pacing. The first hour was slow. People walked by, glancing at her work but not stopping. Emma felt her confidence draining with each passersby. Then a woman in her 50s paused in front of Emma's painting of the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. She studied it for a long moment, her head tilted. "This is beautiful," she said finally. "Did you paint this?" "Yes," Emma said, trying not to sound as nervous as she felt. "I painted it from my boyfriend's apartment. He has a view of the bridge. It's stunning, the way you captured the light." The woman looked at the price tag and pulled out her checkbook. "I'll take it." Emma's first sale. She'd priced the painting at $300, far less than gallery pieces, but more than she'd ever made from her own art before. "Thank you," Emma breathed, carefully wrapping the painting. "Thank you so much." As the day went on, more people stopped. More people asked questions about her work, her inspiration, her technique. Emma sold 2 more paintings by mid-afternoon, and several people took her business cards, which Jake had insisted she make, for future commissions. Jake stopped by during his lunch break, bringing her a sandwich and a thermos of coffee. "How's it going?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "I sold 3 paintings." Emma could barely contain her excitement. "3? That's $900, Jake." His smile was brilliant. "I knew you could do it." "I'm so proud of you." "I couldn't have done this without you," Emma said seriously. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." "That's what love is," Jake said simply. "Believing in each other's dreams." By the end of the day, Emma had sold all 5 paintings and taken requests for 4 commissions. She'd made $1,500, more money than she'd ever earned from something she created with her own hands. That night, she and Jake celebrated at a cheap sushi place near their apartment. To Emma Richardson, professional artist, Jake toasted, raising his bottle of sake. "I'm hardly professional," Emma protested, but she was beaming. "You sold your art. That makes you a professional." Jake reached across the table and took her hand. I know this has been a hard few months. I know you've given up a lot, but watching you come into your own, watching you pursue your passion, I've never been more sure that we made the right choice." Emma squeezed his hand, feeling her heart swell. "Me neither. I was terrified of leaving my old life. But this us, my painting, building something that's actually mine, this is so much better than anything I had before." "What about your mom?" Jake asked carefully. "Do you miss her?" Emma considered the question honestly. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Not the controlling, manipulative parts of her. But sometimes I wish I could call her and tell her about selling my paintings, or ask her advice about something random. I miss having a mother, even if the mother I had wasn't great at the job." "Maybe someday she'll come around," Jake offered. "Maybe," Emma said, but she doubted it. Victoria Richardson didn't do apologies or reconciliations. In her world, you were either loyal or you were dead to her. Christmas came, and for the first time in her life, Emma didn't spend it at her mother's formal holiday gathering. Instead, she spent it at Bella, not with Jake's family, his mother Maria, his uncle Tony who owned the restaurant, his 2 sisters and their families. It was loud and chaotic and completely wonderful. Maria immediately adopted Emma, pulling her into the kitchen to teach her how to make proper Italian cookies. "You're too skinny," Maria declared, though Emma had actually gained a few pounds since moving in with Jake. "My son doesn't feed you enough." "Your son feeds me constantly," Emma laughed. "I'm just not used to eating actual portions instead of the tiny servings at fancy restaurants." Maria snorted. "Fancy restaurants. Bah. They charge you $100 for a piece of fish the size of your palm. No wonder you were starving." The family welcomed Emma without question or judgment. No one cared that she came from money or that her mother had disowned her. They cared that she made Jake happy and that she was willing to learn Maria's secret sauce recipe. Late that night, lying in bed with Jake, Emma felt a contentment she'd never experienced during her mother's elegant Christmas celebrations. "Your family is amazing," she murmured. "They love you," Jake said. "My mom's already planning our wedding, just so you know." Emma's heart skipped. "Jake Morrison, did you just propose to me?" "Not yet," Jake said, kissing her softly. But someday, when the time is right, if you'll have me. Someday sounds perfect, Emma whispered. January brought new challenges. Emma's commissions kept her busy, and she was slowly building a client base. But she was also still working at the diner, which was exhausting. Jake, meanwhile, was saving every penny he could toward his dream of opening his own restaurant. He worked grueling hours, often coming home too tired to do anything but collapse into bed. They were happy, but they were also stressed and exhausted and worried about money constantly. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening when Jake came home to find Emma crying over their bank statement. What's wrong? He asked immediately, dropping to his knees in front of where she sat on the futon. We're overdrawn, Emma said, her voice thick with tears. I forgot about the automatic payment for my phone bill, and now we're negative $50. And there's a fee, and Jake, I'm so sorry. Hey, it's okay, Jake soothed, pulling her into his arms. We'll figure it out. It's just money. But we don't have any money, Emma said miserably. And I know you're saving for your restaurant, and I'm eating into your savings, and I feel like such a burden. Stop, Jake said firmly. You are not a burden. We're in this together, remember? Your struggles are my struggles. Your successes are my successes. I just wish I could contribute more, Emma admitted. I'm selling paintings, but it's not regular income, and the diner pays minimum wage plus tips. I feel like I'm not pulling my weight. Jake was quiet for a moment, then said carefully, What if you quit the diner? Emma pulled back to look at him. What? Jake, we need that income. Hear me out, Jake interrupted. You're spending 30 hours a week at the diner, which leaves you exhausted and barely any time to paint. What if you quit and focused full-time on your art? You could do more commissions, maybe try to get into some galleries, build up your portfolio. That's a huge risk, Emma said slowly. It is, Jake agreed. But I believe in your talent, and if we budget carefully, I think we can make it work on just my income for a few months while you get established. Emma wanted to say yes so badly. The diner job was soul-crushing, and she knew her art could be more successful if she had more time to dedicate to it. Let me think about it, she said finally. The decision was made for her a week later when Emma got an email from a small gallery in Williamsburg. They'd seen her work at the Brooklyn Art Fair and wanted to feature her in a group show. This is huge, Madison said when Emma called her with the news. Group shows at galleries are how you get noticed. You have to do it. But they want 12 pieces, and I only have 3 finished paintings right now, Emma fretted. I'd have to quit the diner to have time to paint that many pieces by the deadline. Then quit the diner, Madison said simply. Emma, this is your shot. Don't let fear hold you back. Emma talked to Jake that night, and he was unequivocal. Quit the diner. Focus on your art. This is exactly the kind of opportunity we've been waiting for. So Emma put in her notice at the diner and threw herself into painting. She worked long hours, lost in her art, while Jake supported them financially and emotionally. He'd come home from his shifts and find her covered in paint, exhausted but happy, and he'd make her dinner and rub her sore shoulders and tell her how proud he was. The group show opened on a Friday evening in mid-February. Emma was so nervous she thought she might throw up, but Jake held her hand and whispered encouragement. The gallery was packed. Emma's 12 paintings were displayed beautifully, and she watched in disbelief as people studied them, discussed them, admired them. By the end of the night, she'd sold 6 paintings and received inquiries about commissions from at least a dozen people. The gallery owner, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, pulled Emma aside. You have real talent, Patricia said. Have you thought about pursuing this professionally? I am pursuing it professionally, Emma said, confused. I mean exclusively. Representation by a gallery, solo shows, the whole package. Patricia handed Emma her business card. Think about it. I'd like to represent you. Emma felt like she was floating. This was everything she'd dreamed of but never thought possible. Jake swept her into his arms when she told him, spinning her around the gallery. I'm so proud of you, he said, his eyes suspiciously bright. You did this, all on your own. Not on my own, Emma corrected, kissing him. With you. I couldn't have done any of this without you. That night, back in their tiny studio apartment, Emma and Jake lay tangled together on the futon, talking about the future. If Patricia represents me, I might actually be able to make a living as an artist, Emma said, still hardly able to believe it. Like an actual living. Enough to help with rent and bills and everything. And then I can focus on saving for the restaurant, Jake added. We could get a bigger apartment, Emma mused. Maybe one with a separate bedroom. Or even 2 bedrooms, one for us and one as a studio for me. We could get a cat, Jake suggested with a grin. A cat? You said you always wanted a cat, but your mother wouldn't allow it because she's allergic. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Jake remembered that. A random comment she'd made weeks ago about childhood dreams. A cat sounds perfect, she whispered. They talked late into the night, dreaming and planning and believing that their struggles were finally paying off. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, hopeful and happy and more in love than ever. What they didn't know, couldn't have known, was that their happiness was about to be tested in ways they never anticipated. Because Victoria Richardson was not a woman who accepted defeat gracefully, and she was about to make her move. The return. 3 months passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. Emma signed with Patricia's Gallery and had her first solo show scheduled for June. Her paintings were selling well, and she was actually making a decent income from her art. Jake had been promoted to assistant manager at Bella Knot, which came with a raise and slightly more reasonable hours. They'd moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, nothing fancy, but it had a separate space Emma could use as a studio, and they'd even adopted a ginger tabby cat they named Michelangelo, Mikey for short. Life wasn't perfect. Money was still tight, and they still worried about bills and savings, but they were building something together, a life based on love and mutual support rather than money and social status. Emma's mother had been conspicuously absent from her life. No phone calls, no emails, not even a message through intermediaries. It was like Victoria had simply erased Emma from her life. It hurt, more than Emma wanted to admit. But she was learning to live with that hurt, to accept that her mother's love had always been conditional. Then, on a sunny Tuesday in May, everything changed. Emma was in her studio, working on a large canvas for her upcoming show, when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. She hated being interrupted when she was painting. But something made her check the caller ID. It was her mother's lawyer. Emma's heart rate spiked. Hello? Ems Richardson, this is Harold Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I represent your mother. I know who you are, Harold, Emma said tightly. What does my mother want? Mrs. Richardson would like to meet with you. She has a proposition she'd like to discuss. Emma's first instinct was to refuse, but curiosity got the better of her. What kind of proposition? She'd prefer to discuss it in person. Would you be available to meet this Thursday at 2 p.m.? Emma thought about it. What could her mother possibly want after 5 months of silence? Fine, she said finally. Where? Her office. I'll send you the details. Emma hung up feeling unsettled. She immediately called Jake. My mother wants to meet, she said without preamble. What? When? Why? Jake sounded as surprised as she felt. Thursday. I don't know why. Her lawyer said she has a proposition for me. Are you going to go? Jake asked carefully. I think I have to, Emma admitted. Even just to get closure, you know? To see what she wants and tell her I'm doing fine without her. Do you want me to come with you? Emma considered it. Part of her wanted Jake's support, but another part knew that bringing Jake would only antagonize her mother further. I think I need to do this alone, she said. But thank you for offering. Call me the second you're done, Jake insisted. And remember, you don't owe her anything. Not your time, not your forgiveness, nothing. I know, Emma said softly. I love you. I love you too. Be strong. Thursday arrived too quickly. Emma dressed carefully in one of her few remaining professional outfits, a simple black sheath dress and heels. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She was thinner than she used to be, but not in an unhealthy way. More sculpted. Her face had more color, and her eyes were brighter. Working with her hands, eating real food, being genuinely happy, it had changed her physically as much as emotionally. Emma arrived at Richardson & Associates at 1:55 p.m. The building still intimidated her, all marble and glass and money. She signed in at security and took the elevator to the 40th floor, her heart pounding. Her mother's assistant, the same woman who'd worked for Victoria for 20 years, looked up in surprise when Emma approached. Emma, she said, her expression softening. It's good to see you. Hi, Angela. My mother is expecting me. She is. Go right in. Emma took a deep breath and pushed open the door to her mother's corner office. Victoria Richardson stood by the window, backlit by the afternoon sun. She turned when Emma entered, and for a moment, neither woman spoke. Emma studied her mother, looking for signs of what? Regret? Sadness. But Victoria looked exactly the same, perfectly coiffed, perfectly dressed, perfectly in control. Thank you for coming, Victoria said finally, her tone neutral. Your lawyer said you had a proposition, Emma said, keeping her voice steady. What do you want? Please, sit down. Emma sat in one of the leather chairs facing her mother's desk, her spine straight, refusing to show any weakness. Victoria sat as well, folding her hands on her desk. I've been following your activities over the past few months. Emma's stomach dropped. You've been watching me. Monitoring would be a better word. I like to keep track of my investments. I'm not your investment anymore, Mother. You cut me off, remember? I remember, Victoria said coolly. I also remember telling you that you'd fail without my support, that this waiter would leave you once you were no longer wealthy. Emma felt anger flare. Well, you were wrong. I'm doing fine. Better than fine. I have a gallery representation, a solo show coming up, commissions lining up, and Jake is still with me, still supporting me, still loving me. So if you called me here to gloat or say, I told you so, you can save your breath. Victoria's expression didn't change. On the contrary, I called you here to make you an offer. What kind of offer? Victoria pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. I want you to come back, to the family, to your old position at the Morgan Gallery, which I can easily arrange, to the life you were meant to have. Emma stared at the folder like it might bite her. And the catch? You leave Jake Morrison. You stop this ridiculous art career. You marry someone suitable. Bradley Wentworth is still interested, remarkably. And you return to being the daughter I raised you to be. Emma felt like she'd been slapped. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Victoria leaned forward. Emma, you've made your point. You've proven you can survive without me. Congratulations. But this independence experiment has gone on long enough. It's time to come home. That's not my home anymore, Emma said quietly. Don't be naive. You're living in a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, scraping by on painting sales. That's not a life. It's a poverty role play. It's my life, Emma said firmly. And I love it. I love waking up next to Jake. I love painting. I love knowing that everything I have, I earned myself. I'm not coming back, Mother. Not for any price. Victoria's eyes flashed. Then I'll make things difficult for you. More difficult than disowning me? Than cutting me off completely? Than trying to blacklist me in the art world? Emma laughed bitterly. Do your worst. I can make sure no reputable gallery ever shows your work, Victoria said coldly. I have connections throughout the art world. One phone call and Patricia's gallery would drop you. Then I'll find another gallery. Or I'll sell my work online. Or from a street corner if I have to. Emma stood up, done with this conversation. You can't control me anymore. I'm free of you, and nothing you offer will ever be worth giving that up. What about your grandmother's necklace? Victoria said suddenly. Emma froze. What? Your grandmother's diamond necklace. The one she wanted you to have. It's worth approximately $500,000, and it's currently sitting in my safe deposit box. Victoria's smile was cold. Come back to the family, and it's yours. Stay with your waiter, and I'll sell it. The choice is yours. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. That necklace was one of the few connections she had to her grandmother, who'd been the only family member who ever really loved her. But even that wasn't enough. Keep it, Emma said, her voice rough. Or sell it. I don't care. Because no amount of money or jewelry or threats will make me give up the life I've built. I'd rather have Jake's love and my freedom than all the diamonds in the world. She walked to the door, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face. You'll regret this, Victoria called after her. When you're struggling to pay rent, when this waiter realizes you're not worth the trouble, when your little art career collapses, you'll regret choosing him over your family. Emma turned back one last time. The only thing I regret is spending 24 years trying to earn the love of a woman who doesn't know how to give it. Goodbye, Mother. She left before Victoria could respond, taking the elevator down to the lobby in a daze. Once outside, she collapsed on a bench and finally let herself cry. Her phone rang. Jake, how did it go? He asked gently. She wanted me to come back, Emma said through her tears. She offered me everything: money, my old job, my grandmother's necklace. All I had to do was leave you and go back to being her perfect daughter. Jake was quiet for a moment. And you said? I told her no, Emma said firmly. I told her that nothing she could offer would be worth giving up what we have. She heard Jake's breath hitch. Emma, I love you, Jake Morrison. And I choose you. I choose us. I choose freedom and happiness and my own life. Even if it's not perfect. Especially because it's not perfect, but it's mine. I love you too, Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. I love you so much. Come home, Come home to me. Emma wiped her eyes, standing up and hailing a cab. I'm on my way. As the cab drove her across the bridge to Brooklyn, Emma looked back at the Manhattan skyline, at the world her mother inhabited, the world of money and status and conditional love. Then she looked ahead, toward Brooklyn, toward Jake, toward the messy, imperfect, beautiful life they were building together. And she didn't regret her choice for a single second. The wedding. Emma's solo show in June was a massive success. Patricia sold 17 of her 20 paintings, and Emma received commissions from several prominent collectors. For the first time in her life, she had real savings, money she'd earned through her own talent and hard work. Jake's restaurant fund was growing too. Between his raises at Bella Knot and careful budgeting, he was getting closer to his dream of opening his own place. They were happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. One evening in late July, Jake came home from work with an odd expression on his face, nervous but excited. Can we talk?" he asked. Emma looked up from her easel, where she was working on a new piece. "Sure. What's up?" Jake took her hand and led her to their small balcony, where they'd set up 2 folding chairs and some potted plants. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I love you," Jake said simply. "I love the life we've built together. I love waking up next to you every morning and falling asleep with you every night. I love that you leave paint on the bathroom sink and that you steal my hoodies and that you talk to Mikey like he's a person." Emma smiled, but her heart was starting to race. "I love you too. Where is this going?" Jake got down on one knee, and Emma's breath caught. "I know we haven't been together that long by traditional standards. It's only been 9 months, but I've known you were the one since that first night at Bella Knot when you smiled at me like I mattered." He pulled out a small box and opened it, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "Emma Richardson, will you marry me?" Emma was crying before he even finished the question. "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Jake slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, and pulled her into his arms. They kissed as the sun set behind them, both crying and laughing and overwhelmed with joy. "I love you so much," Emma said against his lips. "When did you get the ring?" "I've been saving for 3 months," Jake admitted. "I know it's not as fancy as what your mom would have approved of." "It's perfect," Emma interrupted. "You're perfect. This is perfect." They celebrated that night with cheap champagne and takeout Chinese food, calling their friends and family to share the news. Madison screamed so loudly Emma had to hold the phone away from her ear. "I'm going to be your maid of honor, right? Tell me I'm going to be your maid of honor." "Of course you are," Emma laughed. Jake's family was equally thrilled. Maria cried and immediately started planning the menu for the reception, despite Jake's protests that they hadn't even set a date yet. Emma's hand hesitated over her mother's contact information. Should she tell Victoria? Did her mother even care? Jake noticed her hesitation. "You should call her," he said gently. "Give her the chance to be part of this. She doesn't deserve." "Maybe not," Jake agreed. "But you deserve the chance to extend the olive branch. Whatever she does with it is on her." So Emma called. The phone rang 4 times before Victoria answered. "Emma." Her mother's voice was cool, neutral. "Mother. Hi. I wanted to tell you something." Emma took a deep breath. "Jake asked me to marry him." I said yes. Silence on the other end. Then, "I see. I'm inviting you to the wedding," Emma continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I know we haven't spoken since that day in your office. And I know you don't approve, but you're still my mother. I'd like you to be there." More silence. Emma waited, hope and dread warring in her chest. "No," Victoria said finally. "I will not attend a wedding between my daughter and a waiter. I told you what my terms were for reconciliation, and you rejected them. This is your choice, Emma. Live with it." The line went dead. Emma stood there holding the phone, feeling like her heart had cracked open all over again. Jake appeared at her side immediately, pulling her into his arms. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I'm so sorry." "I knew she'd say no," Emma said, her voice muffled against his chest. "But I hoped I don't know what I hoped." "Did she choose you over her pride?" Jake suggested gently. "That's not foolish, That's just love." Emma cried for her mother that night, for the relationship they'd never had, for the woman Victoria could have been but chose not to be, for the hole in her life that would never quite heal. But the next morning, she woke up wrapped in Jake's arms, with Mikey purring at their feet and sunlight streaming through the window. And she realized that while she mourned her mother's absence, it didn't diminish the joy of her future with Jake. "Let's keep it small," she said over coffee that morning. "Just our closest friends and family. Nothing fancy or expensive. Just us celebrating our love." "Sounds perfect," Jake agreed, kissing her forehead. They set the date for early October, giving them 3 months to plan. Emma threw herself into wedding preparations with the same passion she brought to her painting. They couldn't afford a fancy venue, so they chose Prospect Park, the place where they'd had their first date. Jake's Uncle Tony insisted on catering the reception at Bella Knot for free, his wedding gift to them. Emma found her dress at a small boutique in Brooklyn, simple, elegant, and on sale for $800. It wasn't designer, but when she put it on, she felt like a princess. Madison helped with everything, from addressing invitations to choosing flowers to talking Emma down from her occasional panic attacks about being a bride. "You're going to be fine," Madison assured her. "You're marrying the love of your life. What's to be nervous about? What if I'm making a mistake?" Emma blurted out one day while they were testing cake samples. "What if my mother's right and this doesn't last?" Madison put down her fork and looked Emma dead in the eye. "Emma Richardson, listen to me. Your mother is a miserable woman who equates love with control. She's wrong about Jake, wrong about you, wrong about what makes a good marriage. You and Jake have something real, something built on mutual respect and support and genuine love. That's stronger than any society match your mother could have arranged. But what if?" "No what ifs," Madison interrupted. "Do you love him? More than anything. Does he make you happy? Ridiculously happy? Does he support your dreams and encourage you to be your best self?" "Always." "Then marry him and stop second-guessing yourself." Emma hugged her best friend, grateful for Madison's unwavering support. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful, with that perfect crisp October air that made everything feel possible. Emma woke up in Madison's apartment. They'd followed the tradition of not seeing each other before the ceremony, and immediately felt butterflies in her stomach. "I'm getting married today," she said out loud, testing the words. "Yes, you are," Madison said, appearing with coffee and bagels. "To the most wonderful man who adores you. Now, eat something before you pass out from nerves." Emma tried to eat but could barely manage a few bites. She kept checking her phone, half hoping for a message from her mother, a last-minute change of heart, a blessing, something. But there was nothing. Madison noticed. "She's not coming, "I know," Emma said softly. "I just thought maybe." "I know," Madison said gently. "But you have everyone else who matters. Jake's family, our friends, people who actually love and support you. That's what matters." Emma nodded, pushing down her sadness. Madison was right. She had so many people who loved her. One person's absence, however painful, couldn't diminish that. The ceremony was at 4 p.m. in a beautiful clearing in Prospect Park. Emma arrived early, her hands shaking as Madison helped her into her dress. "You look stunning," Madison said, tears in her eyes. "Jake's going to lose his mind when he sees you." Emma looked at herself in the mirror Madison had propped against a tree. Her dress was simple but elegant, her hair in loose waves crowned with a wreath of flowers. She looked happy, radiant, nothing like the polished but hollow woman she'd been a year ago. The small crowd of guests began to arrive. Jake's family, their friends from the art world and the restaurant, people who'd supported them through their struggles. And then it was time. Emma walked down the makeshift aisle on Derek's arm. He'd volunteered to give her away since her mother refused. Her eyes locked on Jake. He stood under an arch of flowers, wearing a simple but perfectly fitted suit, his dark eyes shining with tears as he watched her approach. Emma had never seen anything more beautiful in her life. "You look incredible," Jake breathed when she reached him. "So do you," Emma whispered back. The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows, and when it was Emma's turn to speak, she looked into Jake's eyes and felt her nervousness melt away. "Jake Morrison, a year ago I was living a half-life, going through the motions of being the person everyone else wanted me to be. Then I met you, and you showed me what it feels like to be truly seen, truly loved, truly free. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You supported my dreams even when they seemed impossible. You made me brave enough to choose my own happiness over someone else's approval." Her voice cracked with emotion. "You are my home, my partner, my best friend, and I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you with everything I have, supporting your dreams the way you supported mine, and building a life together that's messy and real and perfectly ours." There wasn't a dry eye in the clearing, including Jake's. "Emma," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I fell in love with you the moment you walked into Bella, not with that curious smile and open heart. You were this beautiful, kind woman who looked at me like I was someone worth knowing instead of just the help. Loving you has been the greatest adventure of my life. You inspire me every day with your talent, your courage, your determination to live authentically. I promise to always see you, really see you, for who you are. I promise to support your art, your dreams, your wild ideas. I promise to make you coffee every morning and hold you every night. I promise to choose you every single day for the rest of my life. I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said with a huge smile. "Jake, you may kiss your bride." Jake pulled Emma into his arms and kissed her as their friends and family cheered. Emma felt like her heart might burst from happiness. They were married. Against all odds, despite her mother's opposition, despite financial struggles and uncertainty, they'd made it. The reception at Bella Not was perfect. Tony had outdone himself with the food, and the small restaurant was decorated with lights and flowers. There was dancing and laughter and terrible toasts that made everyone cry laugh. Emma's favorite moment came when Maria pulled her aside, tears streaming down her face. "Welcome to our family, daughter," she said, pulling Emma into a fierce hug. "We love you. We're so happy Jake found you." "I'm the lucky one," Emma said, hugging her mother-in-law back. "Your family has given me something mine never could, unconditional love." "Their loss," Maria said firmly. "Our gain." Late in the evening, Emma and Jake snuck away to the restaurant's back patio, stealing a quiet moment together. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Morrison?" Jake asked, pulling her close. "Incredibly happy," Emma said honestly. "A little sad that my mom didn't come, but mostly just grateful. For you, for your family, for this life we're building." "I love you," Jake said simply. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for making me brave enough to choose myself," Emma counted. They kissed under the stars, and Emma thought about how far she'd come from that first night at Bellinot. How she traded designer clothes for paint-stained jeans, a luxury apartment for a one-bedroom in Brooklyn, her mother's approval for her own freedom. And she wouldn't change a single thing. The honeymoon was a weekend trip to a bed and breakfast in the Catskills, all they could afford. But it felt like paradise. They hiked and painted and made love and talked about the future. "I'm going to open my restaurant," Jake said one morning as they sat on the porch drinking coffee. "Within the next 2 years. I've almost got enough saved up. And I'm going to have my work in the Whitney someday," Emma added. "Patricia thinks I'm talented enough." "You are talented enough," Jake corrected. "You're talented enough for anything." They dreamed together, planned together, believed in each other's impossible dreams. When they returned to Brooklyn, real life was waiting, bills to pay, work to do. A cat who'd clearly been offended by their absence. But it was their life, built on their own terms. Emma was painting in her studio a few days after the wedding when her phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello, Emma? It's Harold Morrison, your mother's lawyer." Emma's heart sank. What now? What does she want, Harold? "Your mother would like to see you." Continue. 11:42 a.m. She says it's important." "Tell her no," Emma said firmly. "I'm done playing her games." "She said to tell you it's about your grandmother's necklace." Emma paused. "What about it?" "She wants to give it to you. No strings attached." Emma laughed bitterly. "There are always strings with my mother." "She said to tell you there aren't." "Not this time." Harold's voice was gentle. "Emma, I've known your mother for 30 years. I've never seen her like this. I think the wedding affected her more than she's letting on." "She didn't even come to the wedding," Emma pointed out. "I know. And I think she regrets it." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Should she give her mother another chance? How many times could one person's heart break before it stopped trying? "I'll think about it," she said finally. "Tell her. Tell her I'll think about it." She hung up and stared at her phone, her emotions in turmoil. Jake found her there an hour later, still staring into space. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. Emma told him about the call. "Should I meet with her? Or is this just another manipulation?" "I can't answer that," Jake said honestly. "But I can tell you that you'll regret it if you don't at least try. You'll always wonder what she wanted to say." "When did you get so wise?" Emma asked with a watery smile. "I married you, didn't I?" "That was pretty wise." Emma laughed despite herself and leaned into his embrace. "Okay," she decided. "I'll meet with her. One more time. But Jake, if she tries to manipulate me or control me or..." "Then you walk away," Jake finished. "And we never look back. Deal?" "Deal." Emma called Harold back and agreed to meet her mother the following Tuesday at a neutral location, a cafe in Midtown. She had no idea what Victoria wanted, but she was willing to find out. One last time. Reconciliation. Emma arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early, her stomach in knots. She ordered a latte and sat at a corner table, her back to the wall, feeling like she was preparing for battle. Victoria arrived exactly on time, because of course she did. She wore a simple gray suit, simple for her anyway, probably still worth thousands of dollars, and looked tired in a way Emma had never seen before. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said, sitting down across from Emma. "Your lawyer said this was about grandmother's necklace." "It is." "I brought it." Victoria pulled out a small box and pushed it across the table. "It's yours. No conditions." Emma stared at the box, but didn't touch it. "Why?" "Because your grandmother wanted you to have it." and I was wrong to use it as leverage. Emma finally looked at her mother, really looked at her. Victoria's makeup couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes, and there were new lines around her mouth. Are you okay? Emma asked despite herself. Victoria laughed, but it was a sad sound. No, not really. I've been doing a lot of thinking since your wedding. You didn't come. I know, and I regret it. Victoria's voice was quiet, almost fragile. I regret a lot of things, Emma. Emma felt her defenses start to crack, but she reinforced them. If this is another attempt to get me to leave Jake, it's not, Victoria interrupted. I was wrong about him, about you, about everything. Emma sat back, shocked into silence. Victoria continued, her words coming slowly, like she was pulling them from somewhere deep and painful. After you left, after I disowned you, I thought I was doing the right thing, teaching you a lesson, protecting you from making a mistake. I thought you'd come crawling back within a month, ready to see reason. But I didn't. No, you didn't. And I watched you build a life without me. I watched you succeed as an artist. I watched you marry Jake. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. I watched you become happy in a way you never were when you were trying to please me. Emma felt tears threatening. Mother, let me finish, Victoria said. Please, I need to say this. She took a shaky breath. I was at your wedding, Emma. Emma's heart stopped. What? I was there, in the park. I couldn't bring myself to join the ceremony, but I couldn't stay away either. So I stood at a distance and watched. Victoria's eyes were wet now. I watched you walk down that aisle looking happier than I'd ever seen you. I watched Jake look at you like you hung the moon. I watched you say your vows, promising to love each other despite all the obstacles I'd put in your way. I don't understand, Emma whispered. I've spent the last week thinking about those vows, about how Jake promised to see you, really see you. And I realized. Victoria's voice broke. I realized I never did that. I never saw you, Emma. I saw the daughter I wanted, the heir I needed, the social asset you represented. But I never saw you, your dreams, your fears, your incredible talent, your kind heart. Emma was crying openly now. I'm sorry, Victoria said, and Emma had never heard her mother say those words before. I'm so sorry for everything. For making my love conditional. For trying to control your life. For missing your wedding because of my stupid pride. For all the years I wasted not knowing my daughter. Mom, Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I don't expect you to forgive me, Victoria continued. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I was wrong. About Jake, about your art, about what kind of life you should live. You've built something beautiful with him, and I'm proud of you, Emma. I should have said that years ago. They sat in silence for a moment, both crying, years of hurt and hope suspended between them. I don't know if I can just forget everything, Emma said finally. You hurt me, Mom. Deeply. I know, Victoria said. And I'm not asking you to forget. I'm just asking for a chance to do better. To be a real mother instead of a social director. Emma thought about Jake's words. You'll regret it if you don't at least try. Thought about her grandmother, who would have wanted them to reconcile. Thought about the fact that despite everything, she still loved her mother. It would take time, Emma said slowly. Building trust. Getting to know each other. Really know each other. I understand, Victoria said. I'll take whatever you're willing to give. And you have to accept Jake. Not just tolerate him. Actually accept him as my husband and part of your family. Victoria took a deep breath. I'd like to meet with him, actually. To apologize. I was unfair to him. Judged him without knowing him. I'd like to make that right. Emma was shocked. You want to meet with Jake? If he's willing. I understand if he's not. I haven't given him any reason to like me. Emma pulled out her phone. Let me call him. Jake arrived at the cafe 20 minutes later, looking wary but willing. He sat down next to Emma, taking her hand under the table for support. Mr. Morrison, Victoria began. Thank you for coming. Mrs. Richardson, Jake replied neutrally. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. Victoria looked directly at him, which seemed to cost her some effort. I judged you unfairly based on your profession and financial status. I said terrible things about you to Emma. I tried to break you up because I couldn't see past my own prejudices and pride. Jake was quiet, letting her continue. But I was wrong. You make my daughter happy in a way I never could. You support her dreams, encourage her talent, see her for who she really is. That's more valuable than any trust fund or social connection. Victoria's voice was steady now. So I'm apologizing to you, and I'm asking if you'd be willing to give me a chance to get to know you. The real you, not the caricature I created in my mind. Jake looked at Emma, a silent question in his eyes. Emma squeezed his hand, giving him permission to answer honestly. Mrs. Richardson, Jake said carefully, you hurt Emma. Badly. And I love her, which means I can't just forget that. I understand. But, Jake continued, Emma still loves you. Despite everything, she still wants you in her life. And I love Emma enough to try to make that work. So yeah, I'm willing to give you a chance. For her sake, if not for yours. Victoria nodded, accepting his honest answer. That's more than fair. Thank you. They talked for another hour, awkward at first, then gradually more comfortable. Victoria asked about Jake's restaurant plans, and to Emma's surprise, actually seemed interested in his answers. Jake, in turn, was cautiously friendly, willing to give Victoria a chance, but not letting his guard down completely. When they finally left the cafe, Emma felt emotionally exhausted but cautiously hopeful. That was intense, Jake said as they walked to the subway. Yeah, Emma agreed. Do you think she meant it? Or is this just another manipulation? I think she meant it, Jake said thoughtfully. She looked broken, like she finally realized what she lost. I want to believe her, Emma admitted, but I'm scared of getting hurt again. Then we'll take it slow, Jake said. Set boundaries. Make her earn your trust back. But if there's a chance to have a real relationship with your mom, the kind you've always wanted, I think you should take it. Emma leaned into his embrace, grateful for his wisdom and support. Over the next several months, Victoria slowly became part of Emma's life again. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks. Old patterns would emerge. Victoria would make a critical comment about Emma's apartment or try to offer unsolicited advice, and Emma would have to firmly remind her mother about boundaries. But Victoria tried. She came to Emma's art shows and genuinely praised her work. She had dinner with Emma and Jake once a week, learning about Jake's life and dreams. She even volunteered to help with Jake's restaurant funding, which Jake initially refused before Emma convinced him to accept it as a loan, not a gift. Your mother is actually not terrible once you get to know her, Jake admitted one night after a surprisingly pleasant dinner with Victoria. Don't let her hear you say that, Emma laughed. It'll go to her head. I'm serious. When she's not trying to control everything, she's kind of interesting. And she clearly loves you, even if she showed it in the worst possible way for years. Emma thought about that. Her mother did love her. She was finally realizing that. Victoria had just been so twisted up in her own need for control and social standing that she'd forgotten how to show that love in healthy ways. But she was learning. Slowly, imperfectly, but learning. 2 years after Emma and Jake's wedding, Jake opened his restaurant, a small, intimate Italian place in Brooklyn called Nona's Table, named after his grandmother. Victoria was at the opening night, chatting with Jake's family like she'd known them for years. Emma stood back and watched her mother laugh at something Maria said, watched her try Jake's special carbonara and genuinely compliment him, watched her fit into this world that was so different from her own. She's really trying, Madison said, appearing at Emma's elbow. She is, Emma agreed. It's weird. Good, but weird. Are you happy? Madison asked. Emma thought about it. She and Jake were thriving. Her art was selling well. His restaurant was already getting great reviews. They were talking about buying a house and maybe starting a family. And now she had her mother back. Not the controlling, manipulative version, but a real mother who was learning to support instead of dictate. Yeah, Emma said, smiling. I really am. That night, after the restaurant closed and the last customers left, Victoria approached Emma and Jake. This place is wonderful, she said sincerely. Jake, you should be very proud. Thank you, Mrs. Richardson, Jake said. That means a lot. Victoria, please. We're family. She turned to Emma. I know I don't say this enough, but I'm proud of you both. You've built something beautiful together. This restaurant, your art, your marriage. And you did it without my help or approval, which makes it even more impressive. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Mom. No, thank you, Victoria said, for giving me another chance, for teaching me what really matters, for being brave enough to choose your own happiness even when it meant defying me. She hugged Emma, a real hug, warm and genuine, and for the first time in Emma's life, it felt like she had a real mother. 5 years after that first night at Bellinot, Emma and Jake sat on their back porch of their small house in Brooklyn, watching the sunset. Emma was pregnant with their first child, and Jake's restaurant had expanded to include a second location. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked, his hand resting on her growing belly. Leaving your old life behind? Not even for a second, Emma said honestly. That life was beautiful from the outside, but hollow on the inside. This life is messy and imperfect, but it's real. It's ours. even with the morning sickness and the leaky roof and the cat who keeps bringing in dead mice? Jake teased. Even with all of that, Emma laughed. Though we really need to do something about Mikey's hunting habit. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood, kids playing, music from a nearby apartment, the distant sound of traffic. I love you, Jake said softly. Thank you for taking a chance on a waiter from Brooklyn. Thank you for making a rich girl from Manhattan brave enough to choose love over luxury, Emma counted. They kissed as the sun set, two people who defied the odds and built a life based on love, respect, and mutual support. It hadn't been easy. There had been struggles and setbacks and moments when giving up would have been easier than pushing forward. But they'd made it together. And that made all the difference. Outro. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about princes and princesses or billionaires and Cinderellas. Sometimes they're about ordinary people who make extraordinary choices, who choose love over status, freedom over security, authenticity over approval. Emma and Jake's story is a reminder that happiness isn't found in bank accounts or social status or meeting other people's expectations. It's found in choosing yourself, in following your dreams, in loving someone who sees you for who you really are. Their journey wasn't perfect. There were tears and struggles and moments of doubt, but they faced every challenge together, supporting each other's dreams and building a life that was imperfect but completely, authentically theirs. And in the end, that's what real love is, not a fairy tale, but a choice, a daily decision to choose each other, to choose growth, to choose freedom, to choose happiness over fear. Emma learned that her worth wasn't defined by her mother's approval or her last name or her bank account. She learned to value herself, to trust her talent, to believe in her own dreams. And Jake learned that love isn't about social status or financial security. It's about partnership, support, and seeing someone truly, not who they're supposed to be, but who they really are. Together, they prove that sometimes the best things in life are the ones we build ourselves, not the ones we inherit. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose your own happiness, even when the whole world tells you you're making a mistake. This is the story of a girl who traded luxury for love, a boy who saw past social status to the heart beneath, and a love that was strong enough to overcome family opposition, financial struggles, and the weight of expectations. And they lived not a perfect life, but a real one, full of love, laughter, paint-stained clothes, and pasta made with passion. A life that was messy and beautiful and completely their own. The end.